You know, last week we began looking at the new normals that we see around us. And of course that is on the church's Facebook page. It's also on YouTube. You know, you can go to the Center, I think it's the Center United Methodist Church Community on Facebook. And our YouTube channel is Center UMC Houston. You can see it there, and all sermons for the last since 2015 are on there, most every one of them. You know, the new normals from the pandemic. You know, it's a new normal. I talked about some of that last week in detail. In the United Methodist Church, again, there's a split, will likely happen in the next year or two or three, this quarter. This area of Jackson County growing rapidly. Yes, I mean, I understand there's, I might have said this last week, I can't remember, there's going to be another Publix. Is it going to be up there next to the, what used to be the old hospital? Is it going to be there? Larry, I know you know, keep track of that kind of stuff. Do you know where it's going to be?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's going between Twin Lakes and that corner.
What now?
It goes between the Twin Lakes entrance and the Allen.
Okay. Yeah, y'all obviously had to approve the zoning for it. But anyway, this area is growing. That subdivision is massive. There is people that I can't help but believe there's going to be somebody that lives in that subdivision right now or moves into that subdivision. It's going to be riding down this road, and they're going to say, that's a nice little church. They're going to go in and stop in here and see what this is like. It reminds me of the church I grew up in, possibly. Something like that. You know, like it or not, it's the new normal. It's a new normal, and I think we need to get used to it. As I said last week, I believe a new vision for a new normal is required. I think I went back and forth between the word needed and required. I think it's required. Primarily a new vision. How to maximize the attractiveness of this church. This church, now that's both physically and spiritually. Both physically and spiritually. To be all we're supposed to be as a church. This church, thank God we ain't got a whole lot of work to do on that. It's a physically attractive church. I mean, it's the style 110 years ago when it was built. It's that style, it's the old traditional style, but it has a uniqueness to it. I think it has, as I said last week, it has good curb appeal. But then, spiritually, when you walk in the door, people have said it over and over, I feel God's love here. I feel the Spirit here. Now, can we approve on those things? Sure. Sure we can. To be all we're supposed to be as a church. So when we continue today with part 2, a new vision for a new normal. About 6 days after Peter's proclamation, one of my favorite things in the Bible, that Peter's proclamation that Jesus was the Christ. I think I used that in a sermon 2 or 3 weeks ago, a month ago, or something like that. You know, when Jesus said the things, well, who do the people say that I am? And with Elijah and I forgot whoever else. And he looked and said, who do you say that I am, guys? Who do you say that I am? And Peter, you're the Christ, the Messiah. Well, about 6 days after that, Jesus took Peter, James, and John to the top of what today is called Mount Hermon. It's where it's thought to be the Mount Transfiguration in present-day Lebanon. He took them up there to pray. You know, he was going up there to pray. I assume they were praying too. But anyway, he took these 3 up there with him. On Mount Hermon, they had a new vision of what would be their new normal. As I've gone through this new normal and all this kind of stuff, you know, it's talking to Larry earlier, you know, things change. Our normal, what's normal when I was growing up is not normal anymore. We're talking about that with our grandson. This morning, talking about watching old TV shows, and they said something about, there was no cussing on TV back then. And it's like, and they said, what, really? I said, yeah, there was no cussing on TV back then.
It wasn't allowed.
But the new normal, sometimes the new normal is not so good. We don't like that. But anyway, they had a new normal. They had a new vision for a new normal. Let's read this in Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. And 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and brought them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became as white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him, being Jesus. And Peter answered and said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And when the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were much afraid. And Jesus came to them and touched them and said, Arise, and do not be afraid. And lifting up their eyes, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. And as they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, saying, Tell the vision to no one until the Son of Man has risen from the dead. Gosh, there's a lot. This could take a lot of different twists and turns. I need to read the word first. There's a lot in this. Obviously, well, you probably get the point of what I'm trying to make. But going back over this, while Jesus was praying, his appearance changed dramatically. He was transfigured. Now, that's a fancy word. I think you understand what it means, but transfigured or transfiguration is a supernatural and glorified change of the appearance of Jesus. See, we have in our mind, we think about the Jesus that walked around the earth. And we also think about the Jesus that's in heaven, but sometimes we don't think about what he looks like now, what he looked like back then. And see, Peter, James, and John saw that. He was transfigured. He was changed to what he was going to look like a few days later. Think about that. And not only that, Moses and Elijah. I mean, that's the superheroes of the Old Testament, in the Jewish mindset, even in a Christian mindset. Moses and Elijah talking to Jesus. And if that's not enough, God speaks in that Charlton Heston voice. This is my son who I'm very pleased with. You know, Peter, James, and John, they were both excited and fearful. Peter wants to build 3 memorials, 3 monuments, 3 tabernacles. You know, it's like he sees all this and he wants to build something. You know, that's another whole area to go in, but you know, that shows the humanity. I got to do something. I got to do something. Ooh, man, this is something great. And it was. You know, all this happened. They look, they're afraid, hide their head, put their heads down. Jesus comes over and touches them. They look up, they see Jesus. Just like, looking like the Jesus they walked up the mountain with. And it says something very interesting. Don't say anything about this. until I'm resurrected. Again, there's different ways you can go with this. There's a lot of different things in there, but I'm going to obviously go in a certain direction with it. But don't say anything about this. I wonder if when they went down, I always wonder when they went down, did they tell the other 9? Yeah, the other 9. Oh my goodness, y'all should have been up here with us and see what we saw. Man, let me tell you. Jesus was changed. We saw Moses, Elijah. And on top of all that, we heard God spoke to us. Man, come on. You got to be kidding. No. Notice what happened. I don't know. I don't know if the other 9 knew or not. But can you imagine? Can you imagine? It must have been an experience beyond human comprehension. Maybe that's the reason Peter wanted to build some little, I don't think he could think of it. You know, then we know they're freaked out. They hide. Peter, James, and John had a new vision. They had a new vision. You don't know till the last verse 9. I won't say anything about this vision till later on. They had a new vision of the soon-to-be resurrected Christ. They didn't know what Jesus was going to look like. He had been telling them a little bit about what was going to happen, but I think it's starting to sink in with them. It's just starting to sink in with them. They had a new vision for what was going to be their new normal. And not too many days from now, it was going to be their new normal. Jesus was changing. Jesus was going away. Jesus was going to be resurrected. Isn't that a new normal? And they see a vision prior to this showing us what that new normal is going to be. It might be a full glass sermon. Like I said last week, a new vision for a new normal. Now I went back to the word needed. I'm torn between needed and required. I'm going to stick with the notes. First I said required, now I said needed. I can see people come into center because they feel the Spirit here. I can see that. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Have we already seen that? We're seeing it. Do we continue to see that? We want to continue to see that? I can see hurting people come here for support groups. This is something I've had in my mind. You just don't say, go do it. You got to have qualified people to lead it. For support groups. Divorce. Addiction. Grief. You know what? There's support groups for people that have lost a child, a spouse. You know, there's all different ones. A friend of mine who spoke here one time said he said it helped him tremendously to go to a support group after he lost a child and a spouse. I can see that. I'm not qualified to do that. I'm not going to go get qualified to do it. God needs to raise somebody up to do that. Thank you, Fern. All right. That's all pretty serious stuff there. Let's go. This might be even more serious. I can see see a new sign. Not tearing down what's existing. But I can see a new sign with a new name. Ooh! We'll talk about that a little more. Just because I can see it don't mean it's going to happen. You know, but I can see it. The center. The church for you. Come to the center. Move to the center. Not to live here, but you know, there's a play on words there. I think you understand where the word center is. That's great. Find God's love at the center. I can see people coming to the center that need a fresh start in life. Amen. You can be old and need a fresh start in life. You can be young and need a fresh start in life. I see people coming. Life has been tough. As I spoke to the lady and her kids earlier. Life's been tough for her. Tough beyond tough. Now none of this should frighten you. You shouldn't be scared of it. We must adapt as the area grows. If you don't adapt, you're static. Got to be dynamic. The Spirit will be quenched if things don't change to meet these new needs. It centers new normal. And I am so excited to see the new people that we have here as I look around. Those of y'all that have been here, I've been here going on 13 years. So I've seen a lot of people come and go. Sadly, some of them passed away. But as I look and I see a young man come in, his mom and his grandmother, out of tragedy, I see a family coming faithfully. Yes. I see lives that have been topsy-turvy and seem to be getting better. I see people that walk in the door and I say, oh my goodness. You know, well, we'll see how long they last. You know, they've been here about every, I'm talking Tracy and Jeanette, you know, they don't miss. Unless they're out of town, that's rare. You know, willing and capable people. As I said last week, you know, we should be excited with anticipation to see others come and grow in Christ. Like I said, I can see in my mind's eye, you know, obviously I've not had a vision like last week of Isaiah and like Peter, James, and John had that I just read. I haven't had that vision. I'm not trying to say, whoa, I've just seen it. I woke up at 9, it was all these flashing and all this kind of stuff. And I saw Jesus walking through the parking lot and saying, come on to the center and all this kind of stuff. I ain't seen that. I've seen what it can be, what it could be, what it should be. You know, my role is to help. Like I read last week out of Isaiah. Send me, let me help. Yep, Blane, I got an idea, great idea. I think this will work. You know, it may be slow to come to fruition. But if you're willing and you're capable, it can happen. I want to see Center be a place where people can see a new vision for their new normal. You know, obviously I've been talking about this church, but we all have our lives. As good as we have it in this world, in this country especially, life is still rough at times. We're all dealing with hurts and pains, family and, well, it's generally family related. And it gets us off track. It gets us depressed. It gets us down. And then we come into a place like this, and you can feel the Spirit of God. You can feel the love of other people. We hear words of encouragement from people such as Ken and Jay and Tracy and Hobie and others, Charm and others that stand up here. The music. The preaching. Amen. Thank you, brother. This is a good church.